As we've been reporting, special counsel Jack Smith's unsealed filing has revealed new evidence in the federal election interference case against former President Donald Trump. The former president is facing 4 charges in the election interference case, including conspiracy to defraud the United States. He has pleaded not guilty. The 165-page report is split into 4 parts: the evidence against Trump, the legal issues with presidential immunity, how Smith's evidence is not protected by immunity, and what the government is asking the court to do. For more, thank goodness, I'm going to bring in now CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson. She's also a professor at Loyola Law School in Los Angeles. Jessica, most people are going to ask, why this, why now? Tell us why we're talking about this at this moment.
Well, we're talking about this because the Supreme Court made a decision back, I think it was actually July 1st, usually we say the end of June, about presidential immunity. And that affected this case. And the question, of course, and we got to talk about this, was do presidents or former presidents enjoy immunity from criminal prosecution? And the court said yes and no. And what the court did is they laid out these 3 different buckets. So there are official actions that somebody takes, and then there is presumptive immunity. That's kind of the middle bucket. Then there are actions that only a president can take, core presidential functions. And then there is absolute immunity. And then there's what Jack Smith says everything in this case falls within, and that's private acts where there is no immunity. So we're here because Jack Smith had to go back to the trial court judge, Judge Chutkan, and say, I can move forward with this case. I know what the Supreme Court said. I know they created this broad immunity, but virtually everything that you see before you is about private conduct, no immunity. Let's go and have this trial.
So essentially the Supreme Court said, to have this case go forward, you have to parallel park your car between these 2 existing spaces. You have to fill in this narrow little space, and that's what he's done here, written a strategic document that answers their new definition of things and says to the judge, okay, we're good. You can go forward now and not have to worry about anything that the Supreme Court said is not allowed.
It's exactly right. I love the parallel parking analogy, which is he is saying, we're fine. I know I can't park there. I know I can't park there. I parked in exactly the right place. And this is 157 pages of special counsel Jack Smith saying, I read the immunity decision, and let me tell you why all of this is actually private conduct, why we're talking about Donald Trump as a private citizen, a candidate, why we're not talking about Donald Trump as the president of the United States, because that's where he would run into problems. If these allegations are based on actions that President Trump took allegedly in his capacity as the president, immunity. If these allegations are based on actions that he took as a candidate, actions that, John, you or I could take if we tried to become a candidate for office, then there is no immunity. And that's what Jack Smith is spending 157 pages arguing to Judge Chutkan.
Now, it's not entirely argumentation, right? There's some actual new evidence or some findings in this. What did you see? I know this is just coming out, but what did you see? And also, what's it in the service of that he's gathered since we were all paying attention to this the last time?
Yeah, so you're right. This is a superseding indictment. There's a lot of facts here. And, the irony is if we hadn't had that immunity decision, we actually wouldn't be learning all of these new facts before the election. So what I see are, frankly, a lot of acts that Jack Smith alleges that deal with Donald Trump talking to surrogates, talking to Steve Bannon, we can basically surmise as one of the people listed in the indictment. Rudy Giuliani, talking to all these campaign operatives, not people in the federal government, not Donald Trump saying, let's pull the levers of power when it comes to my position as president, but saying to his supporters, saying to his surrogates, I'm not going to declare that Joe Biden won, and here's how we are going to impose chaos. Now, there's one point that a lot of people are pointing to in the coverage already, where apparently an aide rushed in to talk to Donald Trump on January 6th and said, Mike Pence is under threat. He's in a secure location. And the response allegedly was, so what? And that's one of the new pieces of new to us evidence that would be presented in a potential trial.
Jessica Levinson, thank you as always for helping us sort through all that.